Hi everybody, this is video notes for lesson 1.1 8th grade Common Core. You are expected to take these notes in your green spiral in the notes section. Anything I write, you write. Within this lesson, we are going to be going ahead and solving simple equations. And the goal when solving a simple equation is to isolate the variable. The first four examples are us solving, and the last example 5 is us going ahead and identifying what the actual solution is. Please make sure that you are starting and stopping to go ahead and write down the equations and examples, or you're watching it and then writing, or writing and then watching. If at any time you're confused or you need some clarification as to what I'm doing or why I did something, please write those examples down, questions down on the side, and come prepared to class tomorrow to go ahead and discuss them. Let's start in the first example. In the first example, I have negative 3/4 n equals negative 2. Negative 3/4 is next to the n, which means it's being multiplied. In order to simplify and eliminate the multiplying negative 3/4, I divide by negative 3/4. But when I divide by a fraction, I multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 4/3. And I'm going to do that on both sides with a dot or a parentheses, not underneath. This then simplifies to 1n, or n. And then on the other side, negative 2 times negative 4/3 is 8/3, which is simplified, or you can take it to a mixed number, which is 2 and 2/3. In example 2, I've got to combine like terms before I go ahead and isolate the variable. So 1/4 times 3 is 3/4, and that's equal to negative 5/6. P, negative 3/4 is being subtracted from P, so I'm going to add 3/4 to both sides. When I add fractions, I need a common denominator. If I can't do this in my head, I go ahead and off to the side, I do common denominator of 12, that's times 2, oh, that's a 10, and then I do times 3, and so I end up with negative 1/12, and then I have P equals negative 1/12. Sometimes we'll call this a timeout, but if you can't do that math part in your head, you should be writing it down. In example 3, I am trying to isolate, solve for x. Let's change this to solve for the variable, because this variable is not x. Okay. I am solving for h. What's happening to h? 2 pi is being added to it. So I go ahead, I never subtract an equation. You're allowed to, but I don't. So I do add negative 2 pi, because I like to see those 0 pairs. 2 pi plus negative 2 pi simples out to 0. So h equals 3 pi's plus negative 2 pi's is just pi. So h is pi. In example 4, I'm solving for x. Pi is being multiplied by x, so I divide both sides by pi. Pi divided by pi is 1, so I'm left with x. And then I have 3 pi's divided by pi is just 3, because pi divided by pi is 1. So in these, the first 4 examples, my work is show what your work should look like. Even if you can go ahead and do it in your head, you got to show the work. In the last example, example 5, they've given you the solutions. So when it asks you to identify the solution, you can go ahead and solve it and see if it matches. Or you can go ahead and plug in or evaluate the equation to see if both sides of the equations equal 5. So if I were to go ahead and 4 divided by negative 2, how many negative 2's go into 4? Well, 2 goes into 4 2 times, so 2/10 goes into 4 20. So really I have k plus 20 equals 5. So if I were to plug in, does negative 15 plus 20 equal 5? Does negative 5 plus 20 equal 5? Does negative 3 plus 20 equal 5? Or does 1.5 plus 20 equals 5? Well, if I were to go ahead and take this value for the variable, negative 15 plus 20 is 5. So 5 equals 5, which means k equals negative 5. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can go ahead and see my examples if you need to show any work. All right, and copy everything down. Now, if I've written it down, you've written it down. Come prepared to discuss these examples, and don't forget to include questions or anything that you need clarified. All right, guys, thanks. Have a good one.